Hi, I'm Greg Gutfeld with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Jesse Waters, Juan Williams, and she jet skis on a water bug, Dana Perino, the 5. Where's McGarrett when you really need him? So after that false incoming missile alert in Hawaii, launch notifications will now require verification by 2 people. You'd think that would have been in place already. And maybe a warning that prompts you to double check a message before it goes out. I mean, when I want to delete an email, I'm asked, are you sure you want to delete an email? And that's for an email, not a state alert telling people they're about to die. And here's a thought, maybe don't have the menu item for incoming missile so close to one that says just testing. That's like having the kids' trampoline next to a wood chipper. This screw up cannot be overstated. Imagine if it were you, your family being told you were all gonna die. And for 40 minutes, that's your reality. Then someone comes along and says, oops. Now, my wife was there in Hawaii. She saw mothers sobbing uncontrollably, realizing that they would never see their kids again. She watched families saying goodbye. And yet the press is already back to the swear word. What a contrast between real terror and phony posturing. The same people who report this missile accident with such restraint just days ago were melting over S-hole. When the press conference in Hawaii hit, we took it live. CNN ran a repeat interview with Michael Wolff, a repeat. Maybe if that false missile warning had S-hole in it, CNN would have gone wall to wall. It's disgusting that event that led mothers to place children in storm drains is of less interest to the press than a crude phrase uttered in a meeting. But I guess if you can't blame the usual villain, then why bother? Oh, wait, you can.
Our leaders have failed us. Donald Trump is taking too long. He's not taking this threat seriously, and there's no time to waste. We've got to get rid of this nuclear threat from North Korea. We've got to achieve peace, not play politics.
Play politics? What did she just do? Her state's warning system screwed up, and now Trump has to make his geopolitical calculations based on that? No, how about setting up a system that doesn't terrify people for 38 minutes? And then you can take part in the conversation. Until then, fix your own backyard. This infuriates me. If this had happened, Dana, in New York City, the media would care. The media would care. Instead, they've already moved on about the most ridiculous things.
Well, certainly anything that happens in New York gets overcovered.
Yes.
We know that. Sometimes it's warranted. You would think that people would like an opportunity to go to Hawaii to cover a story. Thankfully, it was a false alarm. And I think it really did expose a lot of the holes in the system.
The system.
So that's good. And I also think that it showed holes in our own family planning.
Yeah.
I mean, right after 9/11, there was a big push. Was it called Ready.gov? It was part of the Department of Homeland Security. And there was a big advertising push, too, to talk to families about having a plan, that if something happens, this is where we are going to meet up. This is how we're going to get together, whether you need to have cash, whether you need to have like some sort of protection, enough food, enough water, things like that. And we've really gotten away from that. And this was a big wake-up call for people, including me.
Well, you know, Jesse, this is a wake-up call. They've reassigned the worker. They didn't fire him. But they got to do something with the entire emergency management system of Hawaii. They must.
They have to fire more than one person.
Yeah.
For me, this is about a big government screw up. They screwed up. So instead of saying false alarm, they didn't have anything ready to go in the script. They took 38 minutes to come up with this. Are you ready? There is no missile threat or danger to Hawaii. Repeat, false alarm. It took 40 minutes for them to cook up that tweet.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that. And they don't fire anybody. They reassign them. What does it take? It basically caused mass hysteria in a huge state, and the guy gets reassigned. So the party that wants bigger government is okay with this. They screw up so big in the state of Hawaii, don't take any responsibility for it, compound the screw up, and then the Democrats want to give government more power over people's lives. They want more power over healthcare, more power over your life, more power over your business. This is the reason why we don't have big bloated government. This is the exact reason.
It's amazing. You know, And about that 40 minutes, Kimberly, they claim that they were waiting for an approval for the retraction. But according to John Roberts,
How stupid is that?
FEMA didn't need authorization. They knew 5 minutes this thing was not real. They made people's lives hell.
Yeah, well, obviously they have to really revamp and retool the system, and don't think that the rest of the states right now are in like scramble.com mode to say, what can we do to make sure that we don't end up looking like Hawaii and have a major problem, because this is like really unacceptable. And I don't like when somebody gets sort of rewarded by, like, oh, we'll just reassign you. Usually it's to a better job position or more money or something. It's like ridiculous. But this is a serious issue of national security, and people were in complete and utter chaos and panic. Like you said, your wife was there and saw it.
So lucky I wasn't
firsthand.
there.
You would have been.
What would you have done?
They would have had to tranquilize him.
No, you know what? I would I'm the guy in
With
the
an
movie.
elephant
I'm the
gun.
guy in the disaster movie that people slap. Remember? Wake up, knock it off. They would be slapping me.
God, I can't wait for this.
Yeah, cold
Sign
water.
me up. Sign me up.
Yes,
I'll put
no,
myself right
my
next
wife,
to you.
She would have seen the worst part of me.
I'm sure she's seen it already.
Yes, exactly.
That's
true. That's what we've heard.
That's true. Juan, I felt that Tulsi Gabbard made that leap to North Korea. A very political leap. It had nothing to do with North Korea. It had to do with their incompetence. You got to focus on the incompetence. You don't immediately jump and blame Trump over his relationship with North Korea. That is absurd.
I don't think it's absurd.
Well, explain.
Well, that's where the threat comes from.
The threat was their incompetence.
No, the threat is that North Korea is 4,500 miles.
They didn't hack in and do this.
Hawaii. And
Yes.
so everybody wants to deal with the source of the threat. You can talk about, this was badly managed. I agree with Jesse 100%. If you knew within 5 minutes that it was a false alarm, why did it take you 30 to 40 minutes to tell the public? You got
Trump's
to do a
fault
better
there,
job.
too, right? Trump's fault?
No. But I mean, you just like anything to defend Trump. But I'm just saying.
No, it's anything to
I'll
damn
tell
him.
you,
That's the point.
No,
This is so huge.
No, it's not. Let me just tell
It's
you
not?
something.
I would love to
Let
see
me
you in
tell
this.
you something. What you see here is that Trump didn't take it seriously. So you should be screaming at Trump, because Trump never, ever responded to it. And in fact, one of the complaints from the people that you loathe, Jamie Lee Curtis, Montel
we'll
Williams,
get to that.
Jeff Wright,
We'll get to that.
all those people are saying crickets. Nothing from the President of the United States
Oh, well, now
about this threat.
you want him to respond emotionally. I thought that's what you don't like.
I think he should respond as president of the United States, and one of the states.
Let's do
just
that. I
had
think we have
people-
a sound on tape of Donald Trump responding, don't we?
Oh, my God.
Well, that was a state thing, but we're going to now get involved with them. I love that they took responsibility. They took total responsibility, but we're going to get involved. They took responsibility. They made a mistake.
There you go.
Yeah, so
There's
you
his
can see his concern is, don't blame me. Wasn't me this time. That's his concern, as opposed to expressing even some of your outrage over either the
Your
mistake.
sense of priority and proportion is so off, it's disgusting. Dana?
Well, I wasn't going to comment on that. I was just going to say that the question about the concern about it being a hack,
Yeah.
I think is a very real one, right?
Right.
So cyber terror is something that can come in lots of different forms. We couldn't even conceive of all the forms that could come in, but our responsibility, either state or local government or even the federal government, is to try to be more creative than whatever a criminal or a hacker might do. Because if you have panic like that leads to an accident, whether it just be because people crash into each other on the highway trying to get out, or something much worse, including retaliation, then yeah, you could lose a lot of lives for nothing.
Yeah, let me, Juan brought up some of the single-digit IQ celebrities like Jamie Lee Curtis and the odious Jim Carrey, who should just go away, go far away. Let me quote Jim Carrey. Of course, what does he do? He blames Trump, says it was a false alarm, but a real psychic warning, because he's really deep like that. He understands psychic warnings. We allow this one-man Gomorrah and his corrupt Republican Congress to continue alienating the world. We are headed for suffering beyond all imagination. So clearly, Kimberly, he's mentally ill. Here you have a system
Right.
that failed its people, and he goes after Trump This guy has got serious problems.
Oh, are you disturbed that there is no causal or logical connection to the event and
Yes.
Trump's derangement syndrome?
Yes.
Aha, I see. We have a Flintstone vitamin for you then, Greg. So, yeah, this is what's happening.
rubber
But
one.
you, at what point are you going to be like not surprised and nonplussed by this?
Yeah.
You're going to say, this is what they do, and if there's any way to try to connect it, that's why he went out of his way, POTUS, to say, I'm glad they took responsibility for it at the state level. Nevertheless, we're going to work cooperatively with them on a national level to make sure that these types of things don't happen. Okay, so he tried to button it up. Nevertheless, they're saying this is President Trump's fault. And they want to characterize it and mischaracterize it as the most reckless presidency and dangerous presidency in the history of the world, right? I mean, that's the whole approach.
Jamie
let me
Curtis.
just say, this is the same guy who was insulting Kim Jong-un, who we all think is on edge anyway.
and that
so
caused
he
this.
calls him Rocket Man. Then he says, oh, no, you know what? My button is bigger than your button. Talk about infantile. Talk about making the
That
whole
has
world
nothing
think.
to do
Is
with the
this
emergency
guy
management
president?
system flaw.
That's
Is
not
this guy
infantile.
president
That's
of the United States?
junior
Is
high.
he able to understand his power?
He wouldn't have let this
to destroy-
happen.
Oh, no. We're talking about a far more serious threat than some government guy making a mistake. We're talking about destroying people.
It's the largest example of shouting fire in a theater, and you don't think it's a big deal. That's ridiculous. That
Who
is
said it? I
hilarious.
didn't say it wasn't a
You just
big
did.
deal. What I'm saying is the bigger deal is if North Korea actually fires a nuclear weapon at Hawaii. And if you don't understand that, you're the
I
one
know,
that's
I
suffering
understand that, but
derangement
we're not
syndrome.
talking about that. What you're trying to do is you're trying to create a different context.
No, I'm
We're
not.
focused on this.
President Trump himself was very careful to say it was the state's. He's talking about the state.
Yes.
And what you
Their
heard from
mistake.
Christian Nielsen yesterday on
It's an
Fox News
incompetent
Sunday. She said it was
bureaucracy.
an unfortunate mistake. That's all it was.
Well, I feel much more safe under Commander-in-Chief Trump than I would under Commander-in-Chief Obama. But I want to ask you
Why is
about
that?
these. Isn't it clear? I don't
What?
think President Obama did anything to
I see.
denuclearize the
Yeah.
peninsula.
I
He
see.
made it
Oh,
worse.
I
Years.
see.
On the celebrity thing, it's so funny. So they blame Trump for someone pushing a button in Hawaii. Chelsea Handler blamed Trump for the wildfires in California.
Of course.
Jennifer Lawrence blamed Trump for the hurricane because God was mad at his election. And Lena Dunham blamed Trump for her weight loss.
Yes.
So anything bad that happens, it's Trump's fault. But if he
Anything
does
goes.
anything good, he
She
doesn't
should
get
have
any
credited
credit.
him for the weight loss, by the way. Yogurt for Brains, Jamie Lee Curtis said the Hawaii missile scare is on you, Mr. Trump. You. The real fear that mothers and fathers and children felt is on you. This does no help for the people that were panicking at that time, is putting it on Trump. You know what this is? This is self-serving
pile-on, though.
peacock preening. Look at me, look at me, look at me. Shut up and eat your yogurt.
That looked like a cry to help. For
Yes,
help, actually.
exactly.
That was when you were using
By the
all
way-
caps and
by the
you're
way,
like 50. No.
She has other issues with the filming of True Lies that she should be focusing on instead of this. Google that, people.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, no. Did you hear about the True Lies
I don't know.
scandal?
Hit the T's.
All right. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Ahead. If a DACA deal is dead, blame Democrats, says President Trump. That's next.
There was a glimmer of hope last Tuesday that both parties might negotiate a deal on DACA, a program that protects illegals brought to the United States as children. But talks were derailed 2 days later after a testy meeting at the White House. President Trump says, blame Democrats.
Honestly, I don't think the Democrats want to make a deal. I think they talk about DACA, but they don't want to help the DACA people. You have a lot of sticking points, but they're all Democrat sticking points because we are ready, willing, and able to make a deal, but they don't want to. They don't want security at the border. They don't want to stop drugs. And they want to take money away from our military, which we cannot do. So those are some of the sticking points.
Rand Paul providing some perspective.
And you can't have an immigration compromise if everybody's out there calling the president a racist. They're actually destroying the setting, and he used a little bit of it, but both sides now are destroying the setting in which anything meaningful can happen on immigration.
The president yesterday appearing before cameras to defend himself amid an outcry over his alleged rhetoric on immigration.
I'm not a racist. I am the least racist person you have ever interviewed. That I can tell you.
Okay, Dana, just strategy for the Democrats. Do you think they would be okay with kind of letting the Dreamer deal get kicked down the road in order so they could run on it in the midterms?
No, I don't think so.
They really want to protect the Dreamers that badly immediately.
Well, I think partly because they weren't able to fix it legislatively when President Obama was in office, so he took executive action, which means that President Trump can take executive action of his own, and his deadline is March. So I don't think that this is something they could run on. And I think that that's wrong on a lot of reasons, not just politically, but the policy. I think it's time. Like, if they were really that close last Tuesday, they should be able to get this done. It sounds to me like they need to figure out if they're going to have more meetings. I wouldn't have that big a meeting in order to try to come to some sort of a deal. You need to have a smaller group of people that can actually speak on others' behalf and get to the deal that way. Because if you have 22 people in a room, it's going to be impossible to do that. And they should designate somebody as the honest broker. Because now there's a dispute over what was offered as a possible deal and what was like sort of gearing up to agree to. And if you don't even have agreement on what was presented as a possibility of a framework of a deal, and it turns into name calling by the end of the week, they're in big trouble. And I don't know really how they get it done by Friday. I think what they might have to do is pass some sort of a spending measure to keep the government open and maybe continue to talk about this.
Speaking of honest brokers, Greg Gutfeld, do you think the Democrats, when they leaked the S-hole comment, do you think they considered how it would play within the immigration negotiation, or do you think they were just trying to hurt the president for the news cycle?
I think it could be both. I mean, you know, it's actually a pretty sneaky and clever strategy. Prove you're not racist by covering DACA. That's what they're doing. I think that's what they're doing. If you don't do this, then you must be a racist. I don't think the deal is dead. It's never dead. It's always a tug of war with a pit bull with Trump. And I think as long as there's time, I think they already have that deal. But why accept it now when you can get a little bit more out of it? But I mean, I refuse to get upset over this S-hole thing after Saturday. It is small potatoes. It's a political football. It's gross.
Can I ask you, was it confirmed that the Democrats leaked that comment?
I would assume it was, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
But let's not make a mountain out of an S-hole.
Nicely done.
Greg is saying. Kimberly, some conservatives, border hawks, think the president was walking into a trap when it came to this deal. They didn't like a lot of the things that were being pushed, and maybe some of them are happy that the S-hole comment came up and this thing looks like it's falling apart.
Well, I mean, I agree with Greg that you never know how this could turn out because I wouldn't, count him out. But yeah, he got pushed up against a couple of issues and he was trying to, in the spirit of negotiation, trying to say, okay, look, I'm willing to come to the table here. We're going to bargain. We're going to do the art of the deal. And then they're like, went ahead anyway in bad faith and called him a racist. I mean, it's like, I agree with Rand Paul. It's kind of like a non-starter. How can this go forward if you're accusing the person that you're trying to negotiate with of being a racist? It's like, where do you go from there? Because it's basically saying that any of his intentionality as it relates to DACA is malignant, is bad, that this is a guy's racist. He's not going to have the best interest of all Americans, only some Americans. And there's just no proof or evidence whatsoever to support that. And if you talk to anybody that knows President Trump for a long time, and I do as well, or anybody who's worked for him, they have very favorable and positive things to say, except for some disgruntled from, like, The Apprentice.
Juan, did you know that the president not only is not racist, he is the least racist person that you'll ever talk to?
Well, that's what he says. Take the man at his word. It's laughable, but I'll listen to him. But, I mean, the problem here is about the negotiation. Let's get back to DACA for a second. I think the president clearly is back on his heels. If this is a prize fight, he was knocked back by what happened last week. They were talking, and the president was intent. I mean, he televised that session to demonstrate his capacity to hold negotiations, to be forceful. He had some missteps there. We remember when he was saying, oh, yeah, I'll give you a clean DACA deal, and then Kevin McCarthy had to come in and say, no, Mr. President, hold on. So then he goes back on that. But once the stuff about calling those countries that unfortunate name comes out, then clearly it discombobulated the whole set of negotiations. He's now trying to get back at it by saying, oh, the Democrats don't care about any kind of border security. And that's clearly his talking point. I don't know how you can say that. I mean, I go back to the Gang of Eight, the deal that was attempted when President Obama was in office. And part of that deal was a large increase in spending on border security approved by Democrats and Republicans. Who scuttled the deal? The far right talk show host of the Republican Party. And I mean, that's also true, by the way, going back to, I think it's 2006 and the Bush administration attempt at an immigration deal. There was lots of added border security. We're now at the point where last week they said we're at the lowest point in 45 years in terms of border crossings. We have more border security in terms of the people from immigration, whatever you call it, ICE or whatever, on the border. We have more drones. We have more security. Because both sides, the Obama people who were trying to make the case to get the deal with the Gang of Eight, put more money in there, Kimberly.
Well, but President Trump has definitely redoubled the efforts. That's something
he
he's
hasn't
very
been there
consistent
that
on.
long.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's not be fair.
I mean, it is clear that whatever we think is going to happen in Washington usually doesn't. Condoleezza Rice making some headlines with her take on the Me Too movement. Up ahead.
Condoleezza Rice broke barriers as the first African-American woman to become Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. She was also one of the first 2 women admitted to the all-male Augusta National Golf Club. In a new interview, Rice was asked to share her thoughts on the Me Too movement sweeping the nation. Listen.
I think that the movement to expose these circumstances is a good thing. Let's clear the air about it. I do think we have to be a little bit careful. Let's not turn women into snowflakes. Let's not infantilize women. And what I really don't want to happen is I don't want it to get to a place that men start to think, well, maybe it's just better not to have women around. I've heard a little bit of that, and it worries me.
Kimberly, that was one of the first things that you brought up, is that a concern would be that women's advancement in the workplace would actually stall if people thought, well, maybe we don't want to promote this person because we don't cause any problems going forward.
Absolutely, and I want to support and promote women and put them in the positions that they deserve by merit and credibility and qualifications to be in. And what I don't want to see is have this reverse pendulum thing where then all of a sudden people are saying, okay, there's a chilling effect that we're witnessing happening where then women are discriminated against by virtue of fear that has been set forward in this whole social media sphere to say, oh, well, we don't want to take any problems, so better not get involved or engage or put someone in this position. Like, take a safe and not appropriate course of action.
Yeah, sometimes, Jesse, I think that the media should go to Condoleezza Rice first to ask for comments, because when she commented on the national anthem controversy, it made so much sense. And it was like, oh, that's exactly right. And I think that she made a lot of sense there, too. How about you?
We could all use a little more Condi Rice in our lives.
Some a lot.
A great American. And if she wants to invite me to play golf at Augusta, I'm available.
You need like
Checks in the
18
mail.
holes, I think.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
Your tutoring.
Maybe 2 rounds. It's good that a woman is kind of leading the charge against the Me Too movement, swinging wildly out of control. A man cannot do that, and she makes 2 great points. You can deny women opportunities, and you can also disempower them. I read an article about this guy, Aziz Ansari. He's this comedian, and I guess he went on a date, and he acted very obnoxious, and takes her out, brings her back to the apartment, and pressures her to go farther than she wanted to go far. Didn't pin her down, but it just was really rude, obnoxious, and inappropriate. She left very upset. I read an article, this is kind of pulling the Dana move. I read an article in The Atlantic.
Oh, you mean preparing?
Well done.
Yeah, well, sure.
Well done.
But name-dropping a very nice periodical by Caitlin Flanagan, and she talks about how women back in the day used to be a little tougher when it came to dealing with obnoxious men. She said this: if a man wanted more, I was taught flat out say no. If he wanted a lot more, I would physically get away from the situation, always keep cab money so you don't have to rely on him for transportation. And if it got too physical, slap the guy in the face. And I think it's time to bring the slap back.
I'm thinking about
Bring
that
the
right
slap
now.
back.
Oh my God! I pay to see it. I pay to see it.
Greg, you've been talking about that too, which is at some point does the pendulum swing so far that it makes an important moment ridiculous?
There's variables involved here that are making that. The cases of harassment are being conflated because we don't know what the cases are. When a company finds out that there's a reporter or whatever is in trouble, they react in fear. They throw a blanket of silence. So you don't know why Garrison Keillor is gone. You don't know why so-and-so is gone. And then you find out and it's like, wow, that's weird, because that's not like Harvey Weinstein. That's not like sexual assault. That's like a clumsy pass. That's weird. And then what happens is you have this climate of fear affecting men, and women are understanding it. Now, Margaret Atwood, she wrote Handmaid's Tale. This is the feminist dystopian classic, idolized by the Hollywood left, won awards at the Golden Globe. The Me Too movement loves this book. But the author of this book, embraced by the Me Too movement, is saying accusations without due process leads to extremism, and now she's getting blowback. The person who wrote The Handmaid's Tale is getting blowback for saying, watch it, this is going too far. And then you have Catherine Deneuve, I think that's how you say it. She said, we've got to pull back on this. She had to apologize for saying, maybe let's slow down, let's take a look at this. So it shows you how dangerous it is, even for women, to step out of line. And that's a dangerous sign, because if you're telling people to be quiet over a cause, that's going to lead to what Margaret Atwood said, which is pure, unadulterated extremism, a massive panic. And it looks like it's not stopping. What Aziz was obnoxious in that date, but he never stopped her from leaving.
Right.
She stayed the entire time, and you got to wonder. It's like, oh, it's an obnoxious date, the same as Harvey Weinstein. No. Not even
Juan,
close.
I'll give you the last word here.
Well, I think we're conflating a bunch of things because it's just convenient, and I just think it's...
We're good at that.
Yeah, we should be very careful here, because one thing is you want to make sure that women are heard. If somebody really feels that they have been abused or hurt, you want to make sure that and as a society, historically, we have not heard that voice from women. So today we're talking about like this comedian guy. Well, that's a whole different situation than somebody being a boss or having power over someone's career.
Right.
That's a date situation. And again, very troubling. And I don't know how I would feel if that was my mom or my wife or my daughter. I would just say, hey, Anzeri, take it easy here. But clearly she needs to be heard. But he was not her boss, and she chose to be in that situation and go in his apartment. I think you have to imagine that she has some volition and some consciousness, and she should exercise it. But I'm taken by the Catherine Deneuve situation that you were talking about, Greg, because she signed a letter saying, hey, let's slow down.
Right.
Everybody's not guilty. But then guess what? Some of the other co-signers on the letter said things like, oh, women can enjoy rape. There was some porn star who said, and she immediately said, hey, that's why she backed off.
All right, well, I'm sure we'll be talking about more of this. It was good to have Condi Rice on the show, of course. She's welcome to come here and visit us, too. All right, a former Army soldier jailed for leaking our national secrets now wants to be a U.S. lawmaker. It's true. Chelsea Manning running for Senate.
'2018 shaping up to be a very interesting election year. Buzz right now growing loud about Mitt Romney re-entering politics with a run for the Senate in Utah. He's reportedly telling friends privately right now that he's going to do it. But the big news over the weekend was someone else's candidacy. You remember Chelsea Manning, the former Army private convicted of leaking classified government documents. Well, she just filed papers to run for the Senate in Maryland, and she released her first campaign ad.
We need to actually take the reins of power from them. We need to challenge them at every level. We need to fix this. We don't need them anymore. We can do better. You're damn right we got this.
So crazy.
Wow. I thought for a second there that was like a right-wing ad. No, that's a left-wing ad.
Nope, she's all yours.
She's all ours. Well, what are you going to do?
You got this.
But let me just say, yeah, we got this. But let me just say, she's running against Ben Cardin, and I don't know anybody who thinks she has anything of a chance. So, Kimberly, what is this about?
It's terrifying to me. To be honest, I think it's ominous. I think it's not a good ad. It's kind of terrifying. It's frightening. I don't know. It seemed dark and like the end of times of the world.
No, but do you think she's the real purpose of the run is just to expose her to get her publicity?
Yes. Oh. I don't think there's true intentionality there. I think what she's doing is trying to get press and keep her name in the public sphere. And so I find it to be disingenuous and also frightening.
Jesse, what about Romney? How do you, as a Trump guy, feel about Romney getting back in the game?
I just like how the producers frame this, that there's a convicted felon and traitor running on the Democratic ticket, and now we're going to talk about the multi-million-dollar family man running on the Republican ticket. Round of applause to you guys. And I do think I like
That
how the
didn't go over well in
Democrats
the control room.
are doing these things. I think they should run Reverend Wright for Senate while we're at it. Maybe Jane Fonda for Congress. Kathy Griffin, I think maybe would make a good governor. Run as many kooks as you can.
Wait,
Juan.
you're
I think
putting
this is a
Romney
great idea.
in
no,
that
I'm
category?
talking about the other thing that we were discussing.
Oh, okay.
About Romney.
Yes.
Listen, he's a great American and he's a principled conservative, and it's his seat if he wants it. I don't think, like a lot of people hope, he's going to come in to the Senate and be like the Rosie O'Donnell and drive Trump crazy. That's not going to happen. I think when he wants to speak up, he will, and when he's going to vote with the Trump administration.
Oh, you do think that?
Yeah.
Okay, Dana.
Well, I would think that one of the things that the Democrats should do is reignite that hashtag Thanks Obama, because without President Obama commuting the sentence of Chelsea Manning, they wouldn't have this problem. And this race will get a ton of attention because it is an irresistible story. And I do think that whoever is backing her and pushing this, they will drop her as soon as their purposes have extinguished, because I don't think she'll win. But it will make the 2018 midterms chaotic for the Democrats until they can figure out a way to put this to bed.
Wow, that's interesting. You think this is like a Bernie Sanders type far left effort? You don't think this is just her?
No, I actually don't even think it's
vanity
I don't even
campaign?
think it's a Bernie Sanders thing. No, clearly she has people helping her. That ad looked like it was done on the House of Cards set. That's not something that you do. It's not a YouTube video. I mean, there is some serious power and money behind that, and whoever is doing it, I hope they're there to help her when it all comes apart.
Wow, that's a really
wish her
interesting
luck.
comment. I haven't had
It's
that
the same
thought.
thing that happened to Cindy Sheehan.
Greg, now just back to Romney for a second. So Romney has called Trump a fraud and a phony. Jeff Flake, the senator from Arizona, says he hopes Romney comes in and gets going another voice against Trump inside the Republican
They made
Party.
up after that.
In fact, Flake is now supposedly going to give a speech in which he said Trump is like a Stalinist or something. What do you make of this inside the party fighting?
The Republicans, the nice Republicans like Mitt, need the jerks to help win. Without a jerk, you lose. We learned that with Mitt Romney. He lost because he wasn't a jerk. Now, the jerks need the grace and manners of the nice Republicans to offset or soften the chaos caused by being a jerk. Yin and yang of the Republicans. You need a Trump and you need a Mitt together. Back to Chelsea. Here's the irony. She claimed to be a hero against surveillance, but all she wants is to be surveilled.
Yes.
This is somebody craving.
By a lot of eyeballs.
But yeah, she's craving attention. She's an unstable, sick person seeking attention. And people who are backing her have to understand, like you said, when that spotlight fades, what's going to happen?